Hi guys, this is Sheru here. Today's lesson is going to be about probability. First of all, what is probability? Well, probability is one way of numerically assessing the likelihood of an event occurring. So let's just take a very quick example. So what's the probability that I see blue swans today? I mean, that's not a very realistic example, but we are going to take a look at some numerical examples today. We are going to be taking a look at the properties of probability, followed by some common examples. We're not going to be doing any distributions or calculus-based probability, because that is beyond the scope of this video. Some real work in probability always uses calculus. Anyways, let us get started with the dice rolling example. So assume I have a fair six-sided dice, and I roll the dice. And also assume that a whole integer lands and there's no splits occurring when the dice lands. I can actually sit down and develop probabilities based on the outcome of that roll. Okay, so now let's get started. And let's put down what they call the outcome space. So, what is my outcome space? I can have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 when my die lands. I can also deduce the probability, for example, of having a 3. So let's use that. Let's use. Okay, so let's just talk about this a little bit. All this refers to is referring to the fact that when I roll the die, I get a 3. This is standard notation. Even if you were to take some textbooks and look at them, this particular kind of notation is strictly used. Or, let me say this again, in other words. What is the probability of getting a 3 on a die roll? Okay, so let's take some guesses. Let's say, I don't know. Let's say it's a half. I don't know. Let's just take a guess. Okay. Is it a half? And this is where I want to pause and ask the audience to think about probability a little bit deeper. Probability actually gives a lot of people a headache, especially if you haven't taken or trying to brush up on skills. It's probably one of the hardest things to get. But probability has its own domain, even mathematics. It's separate from statistics, separate from mathematics, and probability is its own field. There's people who actually do a PhD in probability, not statistics, and not mathematics, strictly in probability. And one of the nice things about probability is that it still uses things from statistics, still uses things from mathematics, but it's still its own domain. So, first of all, let's look at a common sense way. So, by the way, half is not the answer. I mean, that's just a rough guess. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the outcomes first. So you can have 6 outcomes. Yes? Okay. You can have 6 outcomes. And so let's just say 6 outcomes. And 3 is one of the 6 outcomes to occur. So all of a sudden, we have a probability that when I roll a die, I get a 3, is 1 over 6. Now let's talk about the properties here. So the probability of rolling a 3 on a single die is 1 over 6 on a fair die. Okay, I mentioned that before too. It's a fair die. So what are some of the properties that this particular thing entails? Well, first of all, it's a ratio. It's allowed to be a ratio, But probability is also a number between 0